or in some cases, we're removing, when you can tell that it's not gonna work, and you're removing the kids.
That happened that much this year? Last year I know we had a couple of times.
No, I think I had, very beginning of the year, the first week of school, a student who's not here anymore, I had to remove class, because I could tell. And then a couple other times.
Alright, I was just curious, because I know.
So oftentimes when it's at this peak, getting the student to actually be removed is too challenging. So you typically remove the audience, remove the peers, ensure the safety of them. And we're going to talk about that debrief piece of that after, even with those peers who then witness this. Because again, we're going to just be focusing on safety. This is not a time when we're going to be giving a lot of verbal directions. Because typically a student cannot even process what is being said to them when they're in that highly escalated situation. So when they're like engaging in the property destruction or the physical lashing out, as we're kind of giving them all those prompts, they're not even hearing it. So we're going to limit our own verbal interaction. We also want to limit response. So sometimes we tend to send like responding teams of folks. Just having 5 adults now around me is going to escalate my behavior. So can we have a point person? So we might have adult supports that could be kind of on the perimeter, but we should have a lead, and we should have somebody who's providing that direct interaction with the student. Because sometimes when we have multiple folks responding, it just gives the student more folks to then lash out against, but also not being clear about who am I responding to, what is the direction that's being given to me, and actually makes things a little bit more messy. So being clear about who is the lead, who is responding, and then just ensuring safety. So I say kind of less is best here, less verbal directions, less amount of folks responding, and removing the peer audience is really important. Again, ensuring that we have some type of protocol. So that's something we're going to be adding to our action plan. So you mentioned typically after the peak behavior occurs, the students destroy the property, they physically acted out, they then like start to calm down. This can look different for each student, what de-escalation starts to look like. And this is where sometimes we can make a mistake. We think that they're de-escalated and they're ready to go into like the debrief and let's problem solve, but this is kind of one of those really critical times when we need to allow for a full de-escalation before getting into a debrief or a problem solving and not jump into it too quickly. So what does de-escalation look like for some of your kiddos? So after they've destroyed the room, how are they now responding?
So if we've gotten them out of the room, it's usually, I often say to them like, we're not going to talk about it now. You just sit. When you're ready, you tell me. And many kids respond very well to that.
So you're allowing for a safe space right there. You're giving a clear direction that we're not discussing it.
I often say, I want to hear your side, so that they aren't already thinking, I'm going to immediately, without hearing their side, make a judgment. And so most kids sort of respond pretty well to that. And it depends on the kid, how long. Sometimes they'll start talking immediately because they want to tell you when I say that. When you're ready, I want to hear your side. Some will immediately go into it. Some will not. You know, the little ones will need to like build with blocks or do something that keeps them busy, which sometimes might be interpreted as someone we're allowing them to play, but I don't care.
I was just going to say that.
But I don't care.
We're going there. Thank you. You're 2 slides ahead for me right now, but you're
so
good.
It's a way to de-escalate some
Yep.
kids.
I get it.
And so it's looked at as a reward, but then that kid will know they'll have a consequence. You're not talking about the consequence during the de-escalation though. That comes after, when they've recognized what they've done wrong and they've been able to. Now that takes a long time. Like it could be 2 hours for some kids before you can get to talking about the consequence. Sometimes it's the next day depending on when that happened, or when the thing happened.
So a couple points that Amy made that, thank you, you've just done all my teaching for me. No apologizing. I think it's great that you have good understanding of this because it's really important, especially for those who respond to escalation of behavior, understanding this is very important. Because I think some folks tend to want to go right to the problem solving and the consequence. And like you just said, for some kids, it can take hours for them to fully de-escalate. And we're not getting into problem solving or consequence until they're fully de-escalated. So this is where you're going to need to know your kiddos. Some kids can probably cool off pretty quickly and get to the debriefing quicker than others, but allowing for that individualization. Also, I'm thinking of students that I worked with in the past, which would then trigger some adult response, is they get into the denial, like, I didn't do that, it was her fault, blaming other people, and then the adults then go, nah, that's not what happened, and now, now we're going right back up the mountain.
Almost have to let them, like when they're telling their side, let them do the blame.
Yep.
discredit it, just listen, even if you know it's wrong, let them
Yep.
say it anyway.
So we're not going to then be reacting to any of these behaviors. This is a natural part of de-escalation. So we're going to let it go, and then when we finally get them de-escalated, we'll go back and talk about those things. But at this point, that's going to be all acceptable behavior. Let them get those emotions out. It's part of the de-escalation process. And Amy mentioned, again, we're not going to nag. We're not going to go to blaming them. So your point of, I want to hear your side of the story, that's actually going to get to my next phase, and I can go over some restorative questions to ask. We need to allow them a place to kind of share what happened for them. Because you actually might get clued into some of those adult behaviors or some of those triggering or antecedent events that can help you later on. Again, we're going to be thinking about maybe what's that function. We're going to
Sometimes it's just a perception, it's not always fact. It's just how they perceive the teacher to respond to them when that wasn't really the thing. And then talking them through that.
That's why sometimes
But
it's
also-
so important to have adults in the classroom, because there's sometimes I'm like,
You didn't know what happened, someone else did tell you.
yeah, or I'm like, you know, they're like, no, you said it, or you know, like,
Correct, you don't even realize.
Yeah.
Yes. Or even realizing, so even that perception thing, sometimes it goes back to where I talked about tone, volume, and cadence. The student picks up on some subtle things that the teacher has said or done or body language that are helpful to know about. And then are even for a teacher then to reflect on, wow, when I cross my arms in front of him, he takes that as like, I'm angry and I'm going to set up a consequence. I need to be mindful of my body position.
Well, the best is when the kid will tell that. You know, because once you get a kid to eventually admit what it was, and then having that conversation with the adult, like, you know, because that's the success right there when the kid actually tells you, when your arms are crossed, it makes me really mad, and I get, oh, all right, well, thank you for letting me know, but like, sometimes you don't know you did that.
But you just mentioned a very good piece there, Amy, that A, it needs to be a safe place for the student to talk about these things, and then we need to respond to it. So if they share something with you, we then need to put that in part of our plan. So if they recognize and gave you one of those antecedents or triggers, we need to now do something about it and validate that feeling for them. So I think you just mentioned maybe 3 pieces there. That validation piece is really important for that student too. Your voice is important, and hearing and strategizing with you is a really important piece to all of this. You also mentioned the mechanical tasks. That's actually a good intervention technique for de-escalation. So when a student is now just kind of had an escalated situation, engaging in like puzzles or Legos or sorting can actually be calming for a student. So that's not seen as a reward. That's actually a strategy to help them de-escalate. So we also want to be very mindful that when they are re-entering, that they're re-entering with an activity that they're going to be successful with. So if they just had an escalation, and then we're going to send them back for the math test,
Not going to be helpful.
No.
not going to be helpful. So thinking about what are some things that, how do we set them up for success
And
when
that's
we
what's
re-enter
tricky
them?
though, because you don't know what the class is doing at that time, and you didn't get to debrief with the teacher.
Yep.
And there's no time to have it. So that's where I think when the kid comes back, because we feel the kid's ready to be back, a teacher has no idea what we've just done for the last like hour and a half or whatever it was, and is immediately, sometimes, not every teacher, upset that they did this and now they're back in my room.
yeah, but you know, can I just ask a quick question? I understand that there's no time to actually, but we all have phones in our rooms.
Yeah.
Like 30 seconds, hey, listen, what are you doing right now?
Yeah.
I send them back, we did this, that, and the other. I'll talk about it more after, but
Yes, and we do that.
I know,
Yeah.
okay.
But it's that happens, but then there's still, you know, because the teacher's in the middle of class, they can't actually share with you how they're feeling. So they're hearing it, they're just receiving that information.
So-
If they're not getting to ask you questions.
But I think Missy's bringing up a good piece that we want to document in our action plan of like that procedure. So is part of the procedure calling down to the classroom teacher and saying, he's going to be coming back, what activity are you doing, so you can make sure that you set the student up for success? And that might be a procedural step that you want to put in your action plan.
Especially if I'm the teacher too,
Right.
because I'm a little like, you know.
The other
Yeah.
issue we run into here, and it's something John and I talked about recently, is when, you know, the secretaries are at lunch,
Yep.
and there are times that a teacher has called the office, has sent a kid down, or had asked for one of us to come, and John and I don't receive that message. And so a kid comes back and maybe implies to their teacher they've been to the office and talked to when they really weren't.
Yep.
And so the kid might have come back in and then come back to the room and say, yeah, I went to the office. They're not lying.
But time out, I didn't think we were supposed to send
You're
people to
not.
the office
They're
without.
not, but it
Okay.
happens.
So
See, that's what
walks
Amy's
out,
bringing
yeah.
a couple more action
Walked
items
out.
to note here.
Walked
A,
out.
we need to have a procedure for when the secretaries are not in the office, who's answering those phone calls and who's sending a response team or not.
Yeah.
A,
Every time a kid leaves the room, we have this procedure in place. If a kid leaves your room without permission, you have to call the office and say, so-and-so just walked out. because
Yep.
we need to know to find that kid.
For
you
safety,
know?
sir.
Yeah,
Yep.
and if they're sending a kid or they need us to come, our preference is always call and ask us to come, not to send the kid out. We wanna go get the kid.
Yep.
In most cases, miss, it's more of they walk out
Okay.
without permission.
Yep.
And
So then
can I just ask a
ensuring
quick
then the
question?
protocol for
Is that
that.
older kids? That's not
Yes.
happening here.
It's older kids. Younger kids will run out, but they're more like,
Escape runners.
they're
They're
runners,
running.
They're
yeah.
running, yeah.
Kindergarten and first grade kids. We have some kindergarten
So,
and first graders who will walk out.
We have a few things that we've noted now in our action plan, and that's an important piece too, to ensure that staff are aware of that procedure and know how important it is to follow it. So
Yes.
we can't just be letting kids walk out and go to the office and just know they're gonna get there and somebody's gonna talk to them. And then also having a procedure for when there's not an office secretary to answer the phone, how are we handling crises during that time
Or
and
they
who's
just get
responding?
busy, and one leaves for lunch, and the other one comes back, so
Yep.
the messages get missed. They're just
Yeah,
natural things that
yes.
happen.
But then looking at how do we kind of set up some
But again,
safety
teachers
measures.
always making sure they have the conversation with John and I, don't just get mad that you think we just sent them back to class.
Yep.
Make sure there's the follow-up,
Yep.
and that's
Well,
what. a bit-
So we're getting to
is
this
my-
recovery
I
phase
know,
now
I'm
of
just
what is
saying,
this
yeah.
follow-up and what does that look like?
Yeah.
But also, and I think you've started that with your flow chart already,
Yeah.
clarity around kind of teacher role, administrator role, what are our consequences? So there's hopefully some clarity that's happening and some transparency that's happening, so it's gonna take time to build that trust.
Well, I'm
And
gonna
that-
say, I'll say it every month, every time we meet, I say it, so,
Perfect, keep reiterating the
think-
message.
Yeah, it's just,
So when the student has finally de-escalated and they're in the recovery phase, typically this is when they're ready to get back to work. Sometimes a student might still be a little bit unwilling, still might be a little bit on edge, so ensuring that we're not going to send them back into escalation. Some kiddos, and I'm thinking about little ones that I worked with, it's highly exhausting, some of those peak behaviors.
They wanna go take a nap
and they go
while
to the
you
nurse
back
and
there.
sleep. Allowing for that is okay.
all the time.
Again, we want to ensure that we're setting them up for success, so sending them back to an activity that they can be successful in. Working with others might be challenging at this point, so thinking about they just had a really highly escalated situation that peers might have witnessed or engaged with. So if you're going to send them back for like a time to work in groups or to work with a buddy, might not be a great success. But again, it's about knowing your student and knowing what might be appropriate for them. So when we are ready to now debrief, we're now ready to problem solve, we're now ready to hold to those consequences. So it's really important that you do follow through with any request that you made. So if you said to a student, if you destroy this room, you have to clean it up, well, there needs to be a cleanup. That doesn't mean that we're not going to help or that maybe our standards are lowered. They put one piece of paper in the garbage. But we're going to hold them to whatever consequence we said we were going to. Because remember, if it's not